Hello, welcome. Welcome to Everyday Ordinary Extraordinary Women. I am Martina and I'm here with Christina. Christina, you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody.
And we are your podcast hosts. And we were inspired to create this podcast after pondering the question, what would the world look like where we can be inspired by every person? Like usually we're quick to compare and judge, right? And it's ourselves and other people. And when we do that, everybody's losing. So depending on my point of view, I can either feel small because I come out lacking, or arrogant and dismissing because I feel superior. I'm actually very good at that one, right? Those are the only two options. And neither of those options make us really feel good. So here's our thought. Someone's everyday normal is someone else's extraordinary. Judgment comes from first impressions. And we invite you, the listener, to go beyond first impressions and see the magic everywhere. There's inspiration at every corner if we're willing to look. So today we're here with Daniela. And I've known Daniela probably for about half a year, right? And what always strikes me about Daniela is her humor and her, there's the depth, but it's also the wanting to be light, bring the lightness and laugh about the situation. And it's just so beautiful, Daniela. It's just really so special to find that in people. So thank you so much for being here. And do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. First, thanks for having me. And that was so sweet of you to say. My humor is something I really enjoy about myself. So thank you. My name is Daniela Nastasi, and I own a horse sanctuary in Chester, New York. And I left my day job to make my dreams a reality after having spent years on a journey of discovering who I really am and what my dreams actually are and what my purpose on this planet is. And I figured it out, and now I'm living the dream, which is funny because I used to say that as a joke when I was in corporate America. Whenever someone would say, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd be like, "Oh, just living that dream." And now I literally am actually living that dream. So I find that comical that it's true now. And so, yeah, so I help people to build their self-confidence and self-love and self-awareness through spending time with rescued horses. And my mission is there. It's double fold. It's to spread awareness about horses because they're a lot more than just fast racers and high jumpers and all of that, and to help people to be able to make an impact in the suicide prevention world as well. And that's in a nutshell pretty much me.
In a nutshell. Okay, that was a lot. That's not just the nutshell, that is huge, right? But like in every sense, it's like, wow, you're willing to leave everything behind. And wow, the work you do with the horse is beautiful. And then the work you do with and for people. And I know, I know that you're always working around fundraising. So there's another whole aspect of growth that is in there, and who you are and how you do that is beautiful to watch and watch you unfold. So can you tell me, if I really knew you, what would I know?
Oh my goodness, how much time do we have on this podcast? If you really knew me, you would know that I am just a big kid at heart. I think part of to attribute to what you said about the lightness and always bringing humor. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a comedian. That was like, I love making people laugh. And when I think about like psychology, the term positive reinforcement, if I did something and people laughed, oh, that was it. I was hooked. It was like, oh, okay, let me do more of that. So I think that's really the core of who I am, is making people laugh, having a good time, and then always wanting to help, always wanting to give support, and always wanting to experience new things and adventure. I love traveling. I love exploring different cultures, um and so I would say that's probably the core of me is, and people who really know me are always even still surprised when I throw out little nuggets of things I've experienced or I've done, or information I have. And I have one friend who's always like, well, that's a new thing. How did I not know this? Why didn't I know, and so still being able to, I guess, surprise people who actually know me very well. And yeah, but the humor's that's the best. I mean, I will I will make a fool out of myself for to be able to get a laugh. And if it gets a laugh, then it was all worth it.
Oh, fantastic. I think that's the perfect lead into our question of a funny, silly, or embarrassing story you have to share with us.
You know, I read that question and I was like, I still cannot think of I mean, there's probably so many funny stories where I've made a fool out of myself. Well, I guess at my brother's wedding, I made a fool out of myself. At my sister's wedding too, actually. I did a little silliness because when I'm really happy, so at my brother's wedding, I attempted to start doing interpretive dance on the dance floor. And that got everybody got a kick out of it. But the embarrassing part was that one point somebody was like, "Is she on drugs right now? Is like something, what is your sister doing?" And the common answer was, "That's just Daniela. That's what she does." Um, but yeah, I mean,
I think that's the perfect illustration of this question, right? You're just living life out loud, and people are like, "What is she on?"
Yep, most of my family in Sicily for years thought that I was on drugs because I'm just so outrageous sometimes. But again, it's for the sake of the laugh. They just don't get that. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's too bad, right?
And as you were talking about the laugh, it's like that's one of the most healing powers we have, right? Laughter. There's this story about this guy who was diagnosed and locked himself into a room and watched comedies 2 weeks straight so he could laugh, right? It's because it's really one of the things that heals you, right? It just heals you on so many levels, right?
So many. And when you think about, they say that it's impossible to be angry and happy at the same time, right? So like, what a brilliant way to keep yourself in the realm of happiness, like just watching nonstop comedies. I would like to ask him what comedies he watched, because sometimes I go on, when I do go to watch TV, oftentimes I find it's tough to find lighthearted, happy movies. So much is so drama filled and so like scary, and I'm not gonna go into that rabbit hole, but I wish there was even more. I mean, there is a lot of comedy, but it seems like the norm, the typical stuff is more dramatic. And I'm like, I want to laugh. It feels so good to laugh, right? Especially when it's something that's really funny. And when I get to the point where I'm laughing so hard you can't hear me laughing, that's when I'm like I'm on the verge of dying inside from laughter, because I can't even utter a sound. I go silent and I'm just like with this face. So I love laughter.
Yeah.
It is healing. Best
But it's
medicine.
it's actually a great point, right? In our world, we're very it's very heavy. Like the news are never about, hey, look, this guy did something good, or this guy did something funny, or this guy. It's all about there's the next drama, and somehow I don't know. I don't know if it makes us feel better if we watch, like we might feel lucky. I don't know exactly what it is, right? It might be interesting to explore what it is that it causes, right, when we watch that, apart from getting ratings up. Always.
Well, I'll tell you what, Martina, there was a point in my life where I thought, you know what, I should be more informed. And I started watching the news. I started watching it every day. I think it lasted maybe 2 weeks because I immediately started to notice that I was depressed. I was easily angered. And I was like, this is, I'll tell you, and that was years ago. I don't think I've watched the news since. Like even during all of COVID, I was always getting the information from other people who obsessively watch the news, which was fine with me because I didn't need to. And, is it a good way, bad way? It doesn't really matter. I don't care. I like living in my little bubble of bliss. And what I need to know will always come to me. And so, but it just instills so much fear, and fear breeds sickness. And so I can't watch it. That's what it does to me anyway. If we're
No,
talking about.
like one of the things I notice, right? And that's my sign, right? It's like when my shoulders start going,
Right.
I'm like, oh wow. Okay. No. You know, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So what is your superpower? And it might be the laughing, it might be something else. What's your superpower? Can you explain?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I have so many superpowers, but let me just pick the one.
Too.
Um, right. I think my ability to be able to, I was thinking about this too when I read that, because I don't know if it's the ability to have empathy or just be a good listener. Because when I engage with people and I really listen to everything they're saying, it's easy to find common ground. It's easy for them to feel comforted. And I guess I've been doing that my whole life and not really realizing it, because my whole life I used to always be like, like I would meet strangers, and it still happens to this day, and they just start telling me all their problems, and they're all about themselves. And when I was younger, I always thought it was so weird, and I would be like, oh my God, get me out of here. But I was also raised to be respectful and be polite, and so I would always sit there and listen as long as I could and look for that out, because it was weird and uncomfortable. But now that I understand more, I value that, because now when someone tells me a story, because I listen so well, I can say, wow, that must have been really difficult. And sometimes just validating that in somebody makes them feel even more seen, even more heard, even more comfortable. And oftentimes that's all people want, is to feel understood. And so to say something, and so I guess it's a good listener, and also being able to understand that what people need is to just feel loved, to feel safe, to feel heard and seen. And I think I'm very, very good at that. And so that is, I guess it's multiple superpowers in one, but yeah, leave it to me to turn one thing into multiples. That's how I do it.
I love it. And I'm sure you probably have many superpowers that are all revolving around that core theme. So inside of that, you are such a giving and empathetic person. What do you do to fill you up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because someone like me can get easy to get lost in that. And I have to remind, which I think honestly, a lot of us, that's just women too, in general, I feel we're always taking care of other people and everything. And so it is, sometimes I even have to remind myself, all right, what do I need today? And so there's a lot of things I do to fill my cup. Meditation is massive. That has been a huge game changer for me in my life. Being with the horses, I am so thankful that I can get up and just walk outside and be around these animals and just feel them and be in nature and be able to feel that impact, right? The healing benefits of being in nature. And moving, dancing to music that I love is something I love to do. Gosh, I do so many different things. Sometimes just going to a movie I want to see by myself and not having to worry about, does anyone else want to see this movie? I don't care. I want to see it and I'm going. So giving myself whatever I want whenever I want it is huge for me. Yeah, I mean, vacation would be great. I would love to do more of that. Um, But I think just being able to listen to my body and my soul when it does need something, and acknowledging what it needs and just giving it to myself without judgment and without any what's the word, like without beating myself up over, well, we should be doing more of this, or I should be doing, so that's, those are probably the biggest things that I do to love myself.
Really great. It's really great. I loved earlier when you said how um when you were in the corporate world, you told people you were living your dream, and now you are living your dream. So it's like, I think like when we're younger, we go through life with that checklist of what we don't even look at what our dreams are, right? We're just like, oh, the American dream is we do this, right? And we're like, check, 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 we're there, right? And now you are living your dream. So I think like, A, that's just fucking brilliant, but B, like it gives you so much more access to take those chances, right? You're like, I left the corporate world for my dream. Like I can do anything now, right? Like,
Oh man, totally. And I think there's so much to it too, because it's not to say that living my dream is literally a dream every day. There's still challenges in my everyday life, and I think that's something that sometimes is still a surprise to me when I think about, well, there's still stresses that I deal with. There's still challenges, right? I mean, of course, there's always going to be. But when I think about, like, because don't get me wrong, ladies, I have days where I'm like, geez, what did I do? Why my dreams have to be so damn big, and why did I have to follow that? Like, I do have those moments because I'm human, and that's our human predicament, right? But like, it always comes full circle when I think to myself, well, if I was going to get another job, what would I do? And then I immediately am like, oh no, I can never go back and work for anybody else. Like I'm committed to this and I'll figure it out. And the benefits definitely outweigh the struggles. But yeah, it's a labor of love that I'm so grateful that I am able to do. And it's challenging me to be better every day. And Martina knows, because the circle that we met through is one of support, multiple entrepreneur women who are just supporting each other. And so she's seen me in the struggle of it, and and so it's not to say that your dream is going to be easy. So, people who want to step out and do something that they love, do it. Yes, I will always support that. But just know that there is still going to be those challenges, which are amazing. I've learned so much in these 3 years. I mean, so much. And I'm still always learning every day, and sometimes relearning. I can be forgetful. So thank you, universe, for always reminding me of some lessons, But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love it. I love this life.
Beautiful. It feels like you found your purpose, right? And we're all in a way chasing our purpose till a certain point, right? And how beautiful. And that's it for right now, right? And there might be something else or something bigger or something different at another point. But for right now, and it fills you up. And yes, it challenges you, because that's what it's here for, right? For your growth and for your expansion. And beautiful, beautiful. So tell us about the time you took a chance for love.
I feel like every time I go on a dating site, I'm taking a chance for love. I just have yet.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like romantic love, right? Because it could be you leaving your job, which was taking a chance for love. But
Oh my
is there
gosh.
anything else, right?
Well, when you put it that way, and that's a beautiful way to look at it, because and that just goes to show you where my mind equates love to right away. And maybe because I'm single, and that's the one piece that I have yet, so it's where my mind goes. But I love the way you just flipped the perspective, because I'm then taking a chance for love every single day of my life. Every choice that I'm making, I guess I took a chance. Well, I have a beautiful, all my animals are beautiful, but my one little miniature horse, his name is Oliver Twist. He is my snuggle buddy. I freaking love the shit out of that little guy. He is the best. And he got sick last summer, and I did not have the funds to to bring him to a clinic, but I took a chance, and I figured it out, because I said, I love this guy too much to not do whatever I can do in my power to not only get him there, because it was all a struggle. I needed help getting a trailer. I needed help loading him in the trailer. I needed, but I was like determined, because seeing him suffer and how much I loved him, I was like, I have to figure it out. And I did. I didn't know how I was going to in the midst of it, but I took so many chances that day. I mean, we drove a trailer that is not registered, that is not insured, because I was like, well, we'll just fucking do it. If we get pulled over, we'll figure it out. Like, I was like, so talk about taking multiple chances that day. Yeah, and I would say that's probably the biggest one, just because of the love for this little guy. I mean, I love them all so much, and I've lost a few animals this year too, and that's been super painful, but I would still do it again every time. He's so
So
cute. I'm gonna have
how
to
is
show.
Oliver doing now?
He's doing great. He got through it, and I actually had the vet today was asking me how's he doing, and I said he's back up to his fighting weight, which is a little extra weight, because all my animals, including myself on my farm, we all have a few extra pounds, and I'm okay with that.
You got to enjoy life. There you go.
My dad always said it's all paid for when you pointed to his belly. He'd be like, all paid for.
Nice.
So what would you say is your biggest lesson you've learned along the way?
Oh man. I would say that my biggest lesson is that the fears that I have are really not that scary.
Mm.
And overcoming them is really not that difficult. I think I've gotten so much, because I've been looking at all my fears so in the face so much, especially this past year, because I've run out of everything. I've put my entire life savings into this dream, and I've tapped myself out, and so I am now really at the mercy of everything I do, and it's been so scary, but there's been so much proof that I'm constantly supported, that fear has dissipated so much, and I love that that's something that I've learned, because fear can, like I said earlier, can really really cripple you in a lot of ways, right? Especially if you believe the fear, and you're not able to change the thought process. But it's been pretty cool, because the more I think about it, the more I realize how amazing it has been to be able to look the fears in the face and be like, maybe it's not that scary after all. Like, maybe these ideas that I have put in my head of like, oh no, if I can't do this, what what's going to happen? And then it's like, well, what is going to happen? Let's dive into that, and then the more you dive into it, the more it's like, all right, well, it's not that big of a deal, I guess, right? Yeah, so I would say that's probably the biggest. There's been so many though along the way. Wow, geez, so many.
I think that's a really big one for most people, right? Is so many people are so stuck and inactive because of their fears, right? And if you can just see that that's just one worst case scenario, right? And what if you look at the other side of it? What if what's the best that could come out of it? And what if you land somewhere in the middle, right? Like,
Right.
but we don't, right? We just stay stuck to our worst case scenario and stay in action. And if you can just get that fears aren't that scary, that's a pretty big thing for most people to
Well, right, because there's a comfort in staying in what we're used to and what we know, right? It provides a security, a safety, we know what to expect. But when you really start stepping into the realm of the unknown in so many facets, that is so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable. But
Yes, absolutely.
right? I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. So,
Mhm.
so being able to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think, is what starts to happen. And then, I did a trip a few years ago where I went into a sweat lodge, And I don't know if you ladies have ever gone into a sweat lodge and done that process, but oh my God, you want to talk about overcoming fears. I literally thought I was going to die in that thing. It got so hot, it was so dark. And we did multiple rounds of it where they, so they put you in we were in this little cement igloo. It was like 20 of us. And they had this, in the center, it was almost like a fire pit, and they're putting these hot stones in there and then pouring water on the hot stones. And now it's steaming up. And then they close the little door, the tiny little door that we had to get on our hands and knees to crawl into, right into this tiny igloo. And I did not realize that I'm claustrophobic until I got in that thing. This is actually another funny, silly story, but I also want to tell it more for the idea of the fears, because I remember realizing that as soon as they closed the door, I felt like, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. This is not what I thought it was. But because I was raised to be so polite, I said to myself, okay, I will wait until everyone has introduced themselves, because he started this introduction and he's like, everyone go around and tell us your name and where you're coming from. And I'm like, okay, I'm having a panic attack, but I'm going to wait until everyone says their name. And then I'm going to be like, okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to leave. So, and who does that anyway? Like, let me put the panic attack on the side, on the, so
More people than what you think do that,
probably,
actually.
right?
Yeah.
Probably, right. So it gets to me and I'm like, I'm Daniela, I'm from New York, and I think I'm having a panic attack. And the guy's like, it's okay, my friend. Don't worry, we're all here for you. Like, in those spiritual people, sometimes they're just so like la 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 la. So okay, so everyone introduces themselves, and something in me was like, all right, let's see, let me stay. I didn't leave, but I was freaking out because I couldn't breathe. I literally thought I guess my body thought I was gonna die. I mean, logically, I knew I wasn't going to die, but I could feel all of this happening. And then I realized that if I laid on the ground and put my face on the ground, there was a little bit of cool air that made me feel like, oh, I can breathe. And so I waited. Okay, the session ends. They open the door and I'm like, oh, I made it. Thank God. And then I said to the lady, I was like, all right, can we get out now? The woman I went with, she's right next to me. And she says, oh no, sweetie, we're going to do another round. I freaking lost my shit. And I don't, I was like, I was like, oh my God. I'm literally now, which is funny because I could have just left, but for some reason, subconsciously, it was like, I knew I needed to do this. So I stayed. They closed it. And I guess because that first round, I realized that I didn't die. I wasn't going to die. That second round was so much easier than the first one. And like I was breathing fine. I didn't have to lay on the ground. And the whole time I remember thinking, wow, this is so much more difficult than anything I've ever done in my entire life, because I literally faced death in the face. Like, you know what I'm saying? So then they opened the door, and come to find out the second round was much longer and much hotter. And I didn't even realize it. I thought it was shorter because I wasn't in my head the whole time. I was like, but after that experience, none of these other worries or concerns that come up ever compare to the idea of feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But then realizing, oh no, I'm not going to die. So yeah, that's if anyone has ever got the opportunity to try a sweat lodge, I would say try it. And I only did 2 rounds. Apparently they go as much as like 10, 11 rounds of that, and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter. I don't think I would ever do it again, but it is a good experience to have done at least once, to see how you can overcome and see the thoughts that come up. I mean, when you feel like you're about to die or you're in a corner, I mean, the things your mind comes up with and what you have to combat to be able to get through it, it's an extraordinary experience.
Wow. Good for you, and very, very powerful. It's just really confronting all that shit, right?
Yeah.
In our minds, right? There is those caves that you can go in, and it's dark and you go in there for a few days, sensory deprivation, and there's no light. They just put the food into a little cubby or a friend of mine just did a polar bear plunge, and the thing she got was, it's just cold water. But it's the whole, oh my goodness, all the fear that leads up to it. And it's like, it's just cold water. That's it, right? But our minds are just so trained to drive us crazy. So, Daniela, what had you let go of your career? Like, what had you decide to completely switch gears?
Yeah, great question. So on my journey of figuring out what my passion was, because I was living for Fridays, I was dreading Mondays, I was in that corporate world, really miserable. I remember driving home from work, and there would be days where I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I just drove right into this tree. And thinking it one time is one thing, but then when I started noticing that I was thinking it almost every time I was driving home from work, when I got to this one point on this road, I said to myself, this is not good. I shouldn't be thinking this so much. And so that was what sparked me on this journey of what's my purpose. And I did a lot of different things in that journey. I was doing mission trips overseas with this church I had joined. Then I started going on Tony Robbins events, and, walking on hot coals was an amazing experience. And going to all these events brought me to other events and brought me to other events and other experiences. And, next thing you know, I'm getting certified in all these healing modalities and energy healing. And then I realized that I had all this stuff. Then I started volunteering with horses. I got very heavy into the spending time with horses, and I was meditating every day, and I had filled my cup so much that the job was tolerable now. I was like, well, I had all these outlets outside of work, and I was so instead of feeling like this, it started feeling more balanced, but I was still there. And then on January 21st, 2020, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, who I had known since I was 12 years old, took his own life. And that hit us in such, as you can imagine, right? And I remembered going through that experience, the wake and the funeral and being with the family. And I just remembered thinking, here was a man who was a pillar in his community. Anyone who you asked about him, fun-loving guy, very sweet man, generous, kind, good sense of humor. We didn't think he would, so it made me think like, wow, it doesn't matter how good you know someone, you'll never really know what thoughts they are giving focus to in their minds. And I had already known I wanted to do what I'm doing now. I was just so comfortable. I had become a little complacent, I guess, because I had all these things filling my cup. So there was no urgency. Well, losing a loved one to suicide created an urgency. And I said to myself, what the fuck am I waiting for? What am I waiting for? Like, people need this, and I got to do it. I got to do it. And so that was the catalyst that, I moved fast. And when I get some in my head, not only can you not change my mind, but I am moving at warp speed, and you're either going to be with me or I'm leaving you in the dust. And I did. I remember I rented my first home that I was living in. So he died January. By March, I had the house rented. I was moving into my mom's temporarily. I was like, I'm going to be out of here so fast. I'm so motivated. I'm going to find something. And I was like on fire. And then COVID hits. And then 6 months later, still living with mom. And I was like, oh my God. That was interesting. I love my mom, but, I hadn't lived with her since I was a teenager. And so that was interesting enough. Looking back, it actually allowed us to overcome some of our own issues together. So it ended up being a good thing. But at the time I was like, oh, get me out of here. I got to find this damn farm. And so I was really committed even during COVID. And I found it during COVID, because even when they were shutting down the real estate, I was still going to people's properties. I said to myself, if someone kicks me off the property, I leave the property. But I wanted to go and just see it, because, sometimes you see things, you go and you get there and you're like, yeah, it's not what I thought. It's not in a good neighborhood. So I was still driving around looking, and I found this property in July of 2020, and he had already accepted an offer from someone else, and it was only on the market for 1 week when I found it, and they already accepted an offer. And I remember saying to my agent, well, can we just see it anyway? Which was a weird thing for me to even ask, because I used to be a real estate agent. And I know that typically they don't still show properties after they have an accepted offer, but I asked anyway. And they said, okay. And so I went, and I ended up meeting the previous owner, and we got to talking, and I told him what I wanted to do there. And he said to me, he said, the guy who wants to buy this property, he's in California. I've never met him. I have no idea what he wants to do with the place. I'd much rather sell to you. So if you make an offer this week, I will break that contract and I'll take yours. And that's what happened. And so yeah, so I felt very guided. I felt like it was so meant to be. I felt like, wow, how divine, that I even asked to see it anyway. I could have easily been like, oh, okay, it's a, accepted offer, moving on. And just buying the property had me rescuing 4 of my 7 animals were his. They were there, and he was going to have to find them another home. And he asked if I wanted to keep them. And I was like, that's a hard yes. I will absolutely keep them. And yeah, and I guess the rest is history. But the catalyst to all of it was losing a loved one. And and sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes we don't move unless something really tragic happens to make us move. At least that's been my experience so far. And yeah, and so I always was an advocate of mental health just for myself, because I always had anxiety, I was depression. Growing up, my immigrant father was very, very hard on all of us. And I call it mental abuse, which sounds harsh, but to him, he was just loving us the only way he knew how to love us. And I took years of therapy for me to figure that out. But so yeah, I always knew that I wanted to help people with it. Even when I started meditating, I always shared it. Before I bought this property, I was doing meditations on Zoom with people, and I was leading hikes and meditating in the woods with people. So it was like, I guess it was a slow progression, but then when that happened, it was like warp speed. That was it. That really catapulted me. So
that was your kick in the butt, right?
yeah.
I always say I dabbled with all the healing stuff until, my son got diagnosed, and that was like, okay, there's no time to waste. We need to get going, right? It usually is something like that. That's why I was curious to hear what, what triggered it. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for.
I wanted to share something too that you had said in this piece about, like, when you kind of like had your way, and then you were like studying different things and trying different things. And I remember early in my like journey, I started working with this energy healer, and I said to her, I had just switched from accounting to massage, and I was like, am I taking a lot of classes because I don't trust myself, or because I need to know this stuff? And she's like, oh, that's kind of a heavy question for your first time. And she gets quiet, and she's like, oh, it's none of those. She's like, you take the classes you take to meet the people you're supposed to meet in this lifetime. And to reawaken all the gifts you've had as a healer in all your past lives.
Yeah.
And so I remember every time I take a class, I'm like, oh, who am I supposed to meet this time? So it's just we're collecting those friends along the way. And so sometimes it's not even about the class. Sometimes it's about the people you're going to meet in that class.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's definitely what every time I would go to a Tony Robbins event, the people I would meet at those events, that's how I, learned about certain things that I had learned about, because we'd start getting to talking. And I mean, there's nothing like being in a room with thousands of like-minded people. I mean, that energy is palpable. And so because we're all trying to better ourselves, the conversations are so much better than when you're, just with people who are like just surviving and, getting through the day and whatever. But that was how I was led to so many different things. It was that domino effect for sure. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Next question. If you had a magic wand and could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
Any quality. I guess it would be the quality to laugh at yourself, because I think if people didn't take themselves so seriously all the time, it could be easier to interact, to engage, to find commonality, it would just be a lighter, I think everyone would just be lighter. It wouldn't be so heavy all the time. That's my thought anyway. Yeah. So the ability to laugh at yourself, whatever quality you would call that.
It's a good one. Really good one. I don't think
Yeah,
we'd take
it's
things
like-
as much, we wouldn't take things as personally as we do if we had that.
That's what I mean, you know, and then when you're in, because like I love when I'm in conversations with people, one of my, well, as we know, humor's my thing. And sometimes it's a great way to interrupt a pattern, especially if you're engaging with someone who is constantly talking about being a victim or is always, you know, leaning into their habitual whatever because they're getting, you know, secondary gain out of it. And some people, the joke can interrupt, and other people it pisses them off, and they just that, you know, so but so if everyone would be able to just let that happen and laugh, it'd be so much better. Life would be so much easier. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah,
We agree.
we take ourselves way too seriously. So absolutely. So last question. What are you most proud of? Like, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
So this is a tough one because I feel like I've accomplished a lot in my short life so far. Obviously, even just executing on this venture is huge. But what my answer is not going to be that. You're probably going to laugh. It's having been able to do things like trapeze flying, like going into that sweat lodge. You know, I feel those accomplishments, because they've been like, yeah, it was kind of scary to do this venture, but not really, because I was so confident in myself and I knew I wanted to do it, and I knew that it would work. So it wasn't that difficult for me. When I believe in myself enough, I'm not scared. I'm just fueled. I'm driven. But to step on a ladder that's like 50 feet in the air and grab onto a bar, you know, with with nothing but like a thin looking net down there to catch you, like that stuff scares the shit out of me. And I do it. And the sweat lodge scared the shit out of me, but I did it. And so I think my biggest accomplishments are that I've overcome so many of these fears to just be the best version, continuously be a better version of myself. And so I'm proud of myself for that, that I don't shy away from doing things like that. And I mean, sure, you ladies have experienced that feeling of once you get to the other side of something that scared the shit out of you and you're like, I just fucking did that. I just did that, right? Like that feeling is uncomparable to anything else.
Yeah. For me, it was jumping out of an airplane, even though I'm afraid of heights. Like, yeah.
See? Yeah.
And it was funny because I thought I would do it to get over my fear of heights, but I realized you don't get over your fears. You just realize you can move past them. They don't have to keep you back anymore.
Right.
I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to be afraid if I ever jump out of a plane again. I'm still afraid of, you know, but I don't have to not do things because of them.
Well, and that's the courage, right? Courage is doing it afraid. Like if you didn't have any fear when you did stuff, I think there's a psychological term for that, and it might be insanity. I don't know, but like, but there is having a healthy fear and doing it anyway. That's courage right there, man. So kudos to you.
Yeah. And it's taking the fear by the hand in a way and saying, I hear you. It's
Right.
okay. Let's go
Thanks
this
for
way.
sharing.
Thanks for sharing. Let's go this way. And but it takes that gentleness, like that softness with ourselves to do that, rather than, well, we can do it both either way, right? We can go gentle or we can just force our way through, right? But there's something to be said about if we bring that softness, that gentleness, and say, it's okay, but we're gonna do it anyway. Come on, this way. So
Love it.
beautiful. So you have a business, and what exactly do I want to ask about it? Like, how can we support you? Like, I know people can donate if they want to, or is there anything that you have to offer? How can people find you? What do you
Yeah.
want to tell us about your business?
Sure. No, thank you for that. So I do a lot of different things. I do host a lot of wellness retreats, experiences with the horses. Everything I do, as you had mentioned, I do fundraising events because I am also a nonprofit. And so everything we do with the horses for mental health is always under the nonprofit. But I'm such a big advocate of mental health. So everything I do is always geared around that. All my retreats are always about rejuvenating your soul because life can take a toll. And so if you want to come to an experience or make a donation to support the cause, you can find everything at my website. It's artemishillfarm.com, Artemis, like the goddess Artemis. And on social media, everything is under my name, Daniela Nastasi. And you can find me there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, but that's it. I draw the line at 3 social medias because it's just too much to handle.
Well, and you have a lot of fun videos there, right?
Yes.
With the horses and so I invite everyone to check that out. It's just really,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I like to have fun with them. They think I'm nuts too sometimes. The horses too are probably like, is she on drugs? No. Oh, man.
Daniela, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been so much fun, and I look forward to coming to visit your sanctuary when I'm in New York, hopefully next summer. And
Yeah.
it's just been a pleasure having you with us today. So thanks for
Thanks.
being here. Thank you everyone for listening. If you loved this, please leave us a review or share with your friends. And please always remember, you are extraordinary. You rock. Until next time.
Have a wonderful day. Bye for now. Bye.